Margo64, I have to say that I'm not at all surprised at the negative comments you received for your Michael Jackson video. People get very touchy when you criticise their icons. I think part of this is because human beings are social animals. Social status is incredibly important to us, and one aspect of social status is, of course, fame. The culture of celebrity really isn't anything new at all. We've always been fascinated by the antics of the rich and the famous, and they're often portrayed as our role models because they've achieved what it is that we're taught we should aspire towards. I think that, as a consequence, our obsession with social status and hero worship often leads us to making allowances that we wouldn't otherwise make. So, to give you some examples of this, poor children with learning difficulties are often seen as being lazy. Children from wealthier families who have exactly the same learning difficulties have dyslexia or some other cause of their problems. Poor children who behave badly are antisocial delinquents. Their more well-to-do counterparts have attention deficit disorder or are just being high-spirited. Poor people who exhibit erratic and odd or often dangerous and irresponsible behaviour are viewed as being a bit crazy. And people with higher social status who act in exactly the same way are viewed as being eccentric. Let's take Gordon Ramsay as an example. I've heard him described as a passionate person working in a high-pressure environment. Well, I work in an environment that is pretty high pressure, and I'm surrounded by highly motivated, very talented people, all of whom have high expectations of themselves and others. But where I work, Gordon Ramsay's behaviour would be seen as abusive and bullying and wholly unacceptable. Similarly, I recall reading a newspaper article a few years ago about a financial broker who had assaulted a single mother on the train after her child had barged into her newspaper. The broker was given a small fine and a ticking off by the court after offering the excuse that she was under a lot of pressure and had just snapped. Now, had the situation been reversed, I suspect that the single mother's claim of stress wouldn't have been quite as successful, and that's in spite of the fact that bringing up children on your own on a limited income is pretty much non-stop stress. There's no getting away from the fact that we make allowances for unusual or even bad behaviour in people that we perceive as having a high social status. The rules really just don't seem to apply to them. Now, quite a few people have said in the trials that Michael Jackson was found innocent, but is that really the case? Because my understanding of the US legal system is that, like the UK system, in criminal cases there is a presumption of innocence, and it's down to the prosecution to prove beyond reasonable doubt that the accused is guilty. And this means that the acquitted are not found innocent by the court, they're simply found to be not guilty beyond reasonable doubt. And as we see with creationism and with global warming and Holocaust deniers, if people really want to believe something, then they can be pretty flexible on what they consider constitutes sufficient evidence or reasonable doubt. There are plenty of people out there who want to believe that Michael Jackson is innocent, and plenty who believe he is guilty, both regardless of any evidence. But let's just take a quick look at the evidence. Whether Michael Jackson did anything illegal with these kids is not certain, but an adult sharing a bed with children in the way it's reported to have happened, even by the man himself, is certainly inappropriate. And making a $20 million out-of-court settlement for false and unfounded accusations is questionable behaviour, to say the least. It's certainly not the expected behaviour of an innocent person. And if people will draw the conclusion that this man had something to hide, then I think that's reasonable. People talk about his childlike eccentricity and innocence, but let's not kid ourselves, this guy wasn't stupid. He was astute enough to be able to surround himself with the best lawyers, agents and creative people in the world. A huge publicity machine surrounded every move, and he managed to extract the highest royalty rate from Sony of any of their artists. Now, if lay people like me can see that paying somebody off is tantamount to an admission of guilt, then so could the very expensive lawyers and PR people on Michael Jackson's payroll. Because these are people whose expertise is in manipulating public perception and opinion. Now, whilst that's not proof of guilt, when I ask myself, would I pay $20 million to someone who made a false public accusation against me, then the answer is no, I wouldn't pay him 20 cents. And in fact, if I was going to spend $20 million, it would be on proving them to be liars so that I could clear my name. I'd fight them every inch of the way. So, following on from Michael Jackson's death and the good riddance comments that seem to be abound here on YouTube and elsewhere, I've encountered another sentiment which pretty much boils down to people saying that we should remember this man for the magnitude of his superstar fame and the superb art that he's produced over the past 41 years, and not really whether he was guilty of raping children. I have to say that I can't disagree with that more. In my eyes, if Michael Jackson was a paedophile, then that taints everything he has done. And I don't care how catchy or groundbreaking his music was, any more than I care whether Harold Shipman had a great bedside manner, Fred West had a great garden, or Hitler loved his dog. Those aspects are completely irrelevant in the face of the horror of their other deeds. Now that he's dead and unable to file lawsuits for libel, I suspect we'll be hearing many more accusations made against Michael Jackson. They're all going to start coming out of the woodwork. More lurid details will come to light and the tabloids will feast on them. And in there, somewhere will be the truth. And I don't think we're ever going to know for certain. But what I would say is that if anyone's going to form an opinion, then please try to do it rationally and don't make these unreasonable allowances. Don't be blinded by somebody's fame. Look at the evidence. And I'm going to give you an example here. If you found out that the strange, furtive and creepy looking guy who hangs around the kiddies' playground area in the park was inviting 9 and 10-year-old boys back to his place to get into bed with him, what would you think? And if you think any differently about that man than you do about what Michael Jackson did, then perhaps you should ask yourself, why?